We just heard that clip from Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, telling senators that they want to move along. He wants to move along. It doesn't sound like you're very popular in the U.S. Senate right now.
Well, Tennesseans didn't elect me to be the most popular person in the United States Senate, John. They elected me to stand up for their interests. I'll point this out, though. What Senator Schumer said wasn't borne out today, because I stood up and offered a full package of amendments for the body to vote on. I'm ready to vote on them right now. I think many of my colleagues are, too. The Democrats objected to that, and that laid bare their true intent. What they're trying to do is just rush this through. It was evident to me on Thursday night when I stopped this. They found out that they had a terrible budget score, over $250 billion in the hole. You recall, they've been saying all along that this infrastructure bill was going to be, quote, paid for. Well, indeed, it's not, and they didn't miss it by a little bit. They missed it by a long shot. $250 billion in the red. Other estimates could be even higher. I blocked this. This frustrated the plan to accelerate this, to pass it in the middle of the night on Thursday night. Today, I offered to have as many amendments as we want to hear. That's not really the interest of the Democrats here. What they're really trying to do is rush ahead and light the fuse on their $3.5 trillion socialist debt bomb.
Well, the Congressional Budget Office, as you alluded to, says this thing was improperly funded. It's not going to pay for itself. Do I have that right?
That's exactly right. And what's going to happen later on this evening is that the Senate is going to be forced to vote to waive the requirement that legislation we pass pay for itself. I think that underscores the fact this is not paid for. Certainly not as billed, not as advertised.
It is 2,700 pages. That's twice as long as War and Peace. Have you had a chance to read the whole thing?
I'll also remind you, John, it's twice as long as the King James Bible, to put it into perspective. We had it for about 6 days. By Thursday, we've divided it up into pieces, reading through it as furiously as we can. Certainly nobody had an opportunity to go through the CBO analysis when I blocked this. We're working through it, but the person and the people that are rushing this through are the Democrats. There's no reason that we can't move this through in regular order, take our time, assess it, and understand it. Look, I'm for hard infrastructure. I worked my way through college, shoveling asphalt. My father, my grandfather were in the road construction business. It's in my DNA. But we want to make hard infrastructure investments that have a real return on investment for the American taxpayer. This bill doesn't accomplish that. There's so much more in it that has nothing to do with hard investments, hard infrastructure, and what it does, it drives us deeper and deeper in the hole, parking yet another $250 billion on the shoulders of our children and grandchildren.
You are getting some support from none other than Newt Gingrich, who put out a tweet today suggesting that you ought to get the support of other senators. He writes, Senator Hagerty is doing the right thing in demanding more debate on the so-called infrastructure bill filled with non-infrastructure left-wing policies. Senate Republicans should back Hagerty. It doesn't seem like you have a lot of that backing, or do you?
Well, John, I think as we take more time, and I'm glad that I was able to stop this so we could take more time and the American public can understand what's really in this bill. And it's comments like these, it's the fact that you and I are having this conversation right now that's allowing the American public and my colleagues to better understand what's in this bill, and I hope that that will inform their votes and their decisions as we move forward.
One of your Republican colleagues, Kevin Cramer, Senator Cramer from North Dakota, had this to say this morning. Listen.
Are there some things that Democrats like? For sure. Are there some things missing that we would love? Of course there are. But this is a 50-50 Senate. Democrats have a majority in the House and the White House. So you're going to have to, take some of those things to get all the other really good things. And all of those other things that you've referenced aren't, again, exclusively Democratic principles. There are some other things some of those things that contribute to the overall infrastructure of our country. And this is all hard infrastructure.
He seems to be saying you have to take some of the bitter with the sweet.
Well, I think the most bitter aspect is what comes next. Because, again, this is a rush job to really try to open the door to pass this infrastructure package so that Schumer can move right into the $3.5 trillion, again, what I call the socialist debt bomb. That's what Nancy Pelosi is waiting for. And she's going to be able to hold this infrastructure package hostage until she gets the $3.5 trillion package that she wants.
And you think that $3.5 trillion will pass?
Well, I'm certainly going to vote against it, but they're going to use a different sort of process, the same thing that they used with the $1.9 trillion so-called COVID relief package back in March. They'll not have a single Republican vote, but they've got a budgetary process. It's a gimmick, really. It's a parliamentary gimmick. But they will impose that gimmick to try to move this thing forward, and I think that that's the path that they're going to try to follow, the reconciliation process, as it's called, John, which is anything other than what you or I might think of as being a reconciliation, but they're misusing this parliamentary trick to, again, shove through another huge package, $1.9 trillion back in March. This is going to be more government dependency than we'd ever imagined. This is bigger than the New Deal legislation back in the 1960s. They're planning to shove this through on a 50-50 partisan vote.
Senator Bill Hagerty, Republican from Tennessee. Senator, thank you.
John. Good to be with you.